as the property for the establishment of a pet crematorium. The plan is subject to requirements in section 903.29 of the zoning ordinance, which also reference requirements in section 1001 performance standards. The plan was reviewed for compliance to borough standards and approved by the Planning Commission for the consideration council. The Planning Commission's recommendation of approval of the plan by council includes a contingency of landscaping upgrades and lighting upgrades to Gooseneck in order to create a cohesive facade with the current business in the area. Little notation on the COVID-19 public participation notice. Due to the current need for social distancing, public participation shall be by telephone and/or video conference only. For information regarding how to attend and participate in this public hearing, that has been duly advertised. I would ask under citizens' comments that are being made, if you could identify yourself before you speak. Do we have any citizen comments to note?
Right in, it's the property owner.
Hi.
Hi, could you state your name, please? Do we have any citizen comments to be made?
Yes, Pat de Blasio here.
And if I might, I beg your pardon, I don't mean to cut anybody off. Mr. Henderson, if we might, if the public comments are germane to the application, I would suggest we proceed in an order where those are reserved till after I make my introductory comments, the applicant makes their presentation, the engineers make their presentation, and then I do believe there's a gentleman specifically, Mr. Rattini, who wishes to make perhaps comment. And then certainly others as well are welcome at that point. That would be my suggestion.
Tom, could you then solicit the comments that you're looking to in the order in which you would like them?
Yeah, if I might. With your permission, might I assist and act as the sub-chairperson momentarily?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Henderson, for the summary of why we're here. And if you'll bear with me, just as a matter of the record, we do have a stenographer who is taking everything down here. And because it's a public hearing, I do need to read a list of exhibits into the record regarding our publication, proof of publication, and a number of the things that Mr. Henderson touched base on. This application was actually filed, and it'll be one of the exhibits in February of 2019, along with a companion site plan land development application. That site plan / land development application has been approved, and I will place that into the record. The reason, and just by way of summary, that we are kind of redoing the conditional use, the zoning hearing, is because we did have a defect in posting it when we did the original hearing last year in February of 2019. So in order to cure that defect and to allow any comments that the public wishes to make regarding that conditional use zoning approval, separate and apart from the land development approval, we have reconvened and republished this hearing. I have, before us tonight, however, is not the topic of any defects in the prior proceedings. Those are pending before the zoning hearing board. Mr. Rattini has submitted an objection dated April 13, 2020. I'm sorry, April 9, 2020, regarding the manner of and the circumstances of conducting the hearing tonight under the COVID circumstances, etc. I have spoken with Mr. Rattini regarding that, and I assured him, and I am now placing in the record his objection in that regard and reserving any objections that he or anybody else has to the manner of conducting this meeting, and reserving their rights on that, so we don't need to further review that issue and can stick to the actual application issue tonight. although the site plan was previously approved, we do have our engineers, Lennon Smith and Kevin Brett, available to touch upon for folks in general information, and because some questions have been raised on the issue of compliance with parking requirements with regard to number of parking and the design of the parking. Having said that, and touching upon Mr. Henderson's review of the conditional use application, I kind of just want to supplement that for folks in this regard. A conditional use is it's kind of a permitted use under the law, with the exception that you have to meet certain extra specific criteria, objective criteria, and there's the actual extra procedural mechanism of going through the planning commission and having a public hearing. Under the law, if one meets all of the specific criteria for a use, we are legally obligated to approve that with reasonable conditions, and we're not allowed to deny it if they meet the objective criteria under the ground of general health, safety, and welfare concerns, such as traffic or other health concerns, etc., unless those extraordinarily and substantially outweigh the fact that you're allowed to do this activity with those criteria met in this location, which our zoning ordinance does provide for a crematorium to be located subject to these approval criteria in the mixed use district. The three specific criteria are that the pet crematorium is subject to compliance with our general performance standards set forth in section 101 of the ordinance. They must comply with general Commonwealth laws and regulations regarding that use. And they also have to conform to the air quality regulations of the Allegheny County Health Department, and we will be looking to the applicant to submit support in regard to those criteria. If I might, before I turn it over to the applicant to make their submission, followed by Lennon Smith touching upon the parking concerns that were raised and other comments that they may wish to make, and then to Mr. Rattini and any other members of public, and certainly at any time for council question. Allow me please to conclude by reading into the record, and I will forward to the stenographer the list of borough exhibits that we would like to have placed in the record in the event that a stenographic record is created. And those are as follows. Borough Exhibit A would be the application for conditional use and site plan approval with the attached plan that was dated February 14th, 2019. Exhibit B would be the Post-Gazette legal notice for the hearing held today that was published in the Post-Gazette on March 19th and March 26th with proof of publication thereof. Exhibit C would be the posted notice, which did actually include a COVID notice, which the township manager posted at least a week before the hearing at the property location. Exhibit D is a COVID-19 notice that the borough provided to the Post-Gazette, and which published on Friday, April 10, 2020, regarding our general procedures that we're invoking here to have our meetings during this time, generally and specifically with regard to this public hearing. Exhibit E is a web page notice of the COVID-19 and public hearing notice that were published on our borough website on Thursday, April 9, 2020. By way of note, I will note that the manager and assistant manager caused those also to be sent out by Facebook on Thursday, and a text blast was also sent out on Friday, April 10th. Exhibit F is an email notice provided by myself to Mr. Rattini dated April 3rd, 2020 of the occurrence of this hearing tonight with the COVID-19 procedures. Exhibit G are the Planning Commission minutes dated April 29, 2020, at which time the companion site plan was reviewed and tabled. Exhibit H is the Planning Commission minutes dated May 2020, at which time the Planning Commission recommended site plan approval subject to the borough's engineer's comment letters. Exhibit I are the council meeting minutes from June 2020, approving the companion site plan, also subject to conditions. Exhibit J are the 3 review letters completed by Lennon Smith with regard to the companion site plan dated April 25th, May 20th, and June 5th, 2019, respectively. Exhibit K would be a letter submitted by Mr. John Rattini, dated/received April 9, 2020, objecting to the occurrence of the hearing tonight under the current virtual meeting circumstances and raising related Sunshine Act matters, which, as I indicated before, we acknowledge, accept, and reserve to him all rights attendant thereto. And finally, I would submit a document called Rattini Submissions, parking concerns number 1, parking concerns number 2, and parking concerns number 3, dated April 13, 2020. If with those exhibits accepted into the record, I will conclude and would invite, without objection, the applicant or their representative to make such submission as they wish regarding this application.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Thank you for allowing us to speak today. My name is Krista Kachowski. I'm with the Lynch Law Group, and I'm here today as counsel for Tamara Pajlek and Pittsburgh Pet at Home LLC, of which she is the sole member. I would just first, I think I mentioned to Tom maybe earlier than this, that we do want to place somewhat of an objection on the record this evening, just to reserve our rights to the extent that this hearing is going to be interpreted as a brand new hearing on whether the subject property qualifies for a conditional use as a pet crematorium. It's the position of my office and my client that the existing decision and the conditional use granted remains in effect, absent a successful appeal by an objector to the Court of Common Pleas, which would be the proper jurisdiction if any appeal was intended to be made. So with that, reserving that position, if I could, on the record, and then moving forward, I would just ask that the board, I guess, have into evidence all of the information that was provided by Mr. Bean in the course of presentment of the original application for conditional use. That would include the application for conditional use submitted on January 18, 2019. That would include the report of Gateway engineers engaged by the township, dated January 25, 2019, pursuant to which the engineers concluded that all of the standards required for the grant of the conditional use were met. And those are all the standards identified in section 903.29A, including the performance standards identified as 1000.1 through 1000.11. And then also the actual decision of the Planning Commission to recommend to the council that the application be granted with some conditions, including landscape improvements in gooseneck lighting. And then finally, the actual decision of the council to grant the conditional use, again, with the contingencies outlined by the Planning Commission, which were those outlined by the engineer speaking to lighting and landscaping.
Without objection, those will be accepted into the record, and the solicitor will also note our acknowledgement that this is not a new application, and this is a rehearing of the original application as originally filed in February 2020.
Thank you.
Would you like to
Oh.
proceed? Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Krista, do you have other presentation regarding the application?
I mean, it's our position that the application was already granted and still remains in effect. So I think that the information, the evidence submitted at the time of the original hearing, as long as that's deemed to be on the record this evening, is sufficient to enable that land use decision to be upheld in any situation. I think the only, I guess, maybe additional information I would highlight, because I do think it was referenced and incorporated into the Gateway engineering report, which I did just mention before as part of our evidence tonight, would be the fact that that my client did in fact have the Allegheny County Health Department approve the operations or the intended operations as a pet crematorium, and those were submitted and acknowledged by Gateway engineers at the time of the initial hearing.
Thank you. And if you could, just for council's edification and folks' edification, that includes a certification regarding the emissions. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. It is correct. And it's actually also, I think, probably was raised and pertinent to the underlying application because of the requirement to conform with 903.29C, which states that the use shall conform to the air quality regulations of the county health department. And so that permit was submitted as evidence of compliance with that standard.
Thank you. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to share that with the public.
No, thank you.
And council. And would that conclude your presentation?
It does. I mean, I would like to respond to any attempt to deem this an appeal of that decision if that position is raised by one of the residents or any objector, but I'll hold back those comments because they may not be necessary.
Certainly, and we certainly want everybody to reserve whatever rights they wish feel they need to reserve on the record at this time.
Attorney McDermott, do you need my client's here with me? Does the council need her to just state that she acknowledges everything that I've said and accepts it, or?
No, ma'am, you can speak on her behalf.
Okay, thank you.
It might be germane at this time, or worthwhile, I guess, at this time, to note a couple things. One concern that was raised, and I'll allow Lennon Smith to speak to the specific parking matter in a moment, was even accepting the manner in which the calculation is done for parking, what if kind of thing, if say, for example, the third floor were to be occupied by either the present applicant in three regards. One, as kind of an accessory administrative office to this business. Two, as a separate, say, veterinary or other business. Or three, rented out to a third party for occupation. It goes without saying, and I believe the applicant understands and appreciates as well, and it's been explained to the public, to the extent that the applicant wishes to use the entire building for this use, she may do so, and the parking calculations are based on the public space. For example, an administrative managerial office where she did billing or whatnot in the attic space or whatever is a subordinate accessory use to this business and does not require separate occupancy, nor does this need to be accounted for otherwise in the parking calculations. However, by way of just be advised kind of notice, we can make note in our decision of the fact and make note of it in this public hearing that everybody is aware that to the extent that there was a separate occupancy or use, that would be subject to new application, occupancy permits, and separate parking requirements. And I just wanted to make a note of that. Lennon Smith, even though parking is not directly before us, I've asked him in summary to review and just speak in summary fashion to compliance with the parking criteria as it pertains to ordinance requirements on how you calculated for this use and its design, if you might.
Yes, good evening, everybody. This is Kevin Brett from Lennon Smith Solray. As Tom indicated, we did receive and review site plans. We had the letters, as Tom indicated, that were issued, the final plans, they did meet the requirements for parking. They did meet the requirements that were conditioned lighting and landscaping. And as Tom indicated, there is specific criteria for what's required for the subject use pet crematorium. It's one space for each 250 square foot of devoted customer service and retail sales. The applicant has submitted documentation, and their plan as submitted does comply with the ordinances. As indicated by the applicant, their conditional use was submitted and reviewed by the previous engineer, Gateway Engineers, and that letter stands as far as the conditional use criteria. Tom did forward over 3 concerns on parking concerns, 1, 2, and 3. I did take an opportunity to review those. Those items are noted, that the comments have been received, but as far as the plan goes and our review of the concerns versus what the plan that was submitted, the plan as submitted still meets the ordinance, and our opinion remains unchanged. So I can take any questions beyond that.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, it would be appropriate at this time if you wish to, if any of council members certainly had any questions of anybody, or if members, if Mr. Rattini or any other member of the public wishes to make comment at this time.
I would first invite Mr. Rattini if you had any comments to add. You were on mute. If you're trying to speak, Mr. Rattini, you were on mute.
There he is on.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you now, yeah.
In the zoning ordinance, there's a particular provision which requires that no vehicle exiting the parking space should require a vehicle on the street to queue to that vehicle. They use that specific language. Given the fact that the garage and the garage door is literally 5 feet off of the road surface, and the road is a very narrow road, it's a non-complying road, it's only 19 feet, as opposed to the required 24 feet, it would be impossible to exit the garage without requiring an on-road vehicle, on-street vehicle, to have to address that vehicle that's attempting to exit the garage. So my question is what does the term queue mean in the zoning ordinance with regards to vehicles exiting the parking spaces?
I'm happy to address that in the first instance. And as I said, that's a matter of the site plan approval, not the conditional use approval. It's a procedural matter. As a substantive matter, those rules speak to when one is designing a street versus the existing conditions with which were presented. With that existing condition in place, the engineers review it on an existing condition basis, subject to the specific criteria in the ordinance, and they comply with those in terms of the locations of their parking spaces and their parking numbers. I don't know if Kevin might have anything to add to that.
That is true. And I mean, I think this falls to, as Tom said, you're talking about the design of the street versus somebody coming out of a fixed structure onto the street. If the literal interpretation was taken into account, then every street that somebody would have a garage that comes out onto the street, in order for somebody to back out from a structure onto the street, obviously a car has to, if one's coming, has to stop in order to pull out onto the street. So I believe the intent of the ordinance is, or how it's interpreted, is for a new street, not for an existing condition.
And that's the way those are commonly interpreted and applied in the context of these sorts of applications in terms of existing conditions that you found here and elsewhere where you deal with such matters, Mr. Brett?
Yes.
Thank you. Does Mr. Rattini have any further comment?
Should we open it up for public comment, Tom?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any comments from the public? Any comments from the public?
I thought I heard Mr. de Blasio attempt to comment generally at the beginning. Unless we missed that, I guess one shout out to him if he still wished to comment on this application.
Tom, I think he has hung up from the
Okay.
meeting.
Okay, at this time, then I'll take a motion for an adjournment.
I have a question.
Oh. Go ahead. Who was it?
My name's Kelly. This is the council meeting about the crematory down at the bottom of the hill, correct?
Public hearing, yes, ma'am. And if you could state your name and address for the record, please. Your
My
full
name's
name.
Kelly. My name's Kelly Cooper, and my address is 1311 Missouri Avenue, Bridgeville, 15017.
Thank you.
So I just have a question with all of the, it's my understanding that a couple of these different, there was a couple different locations that denied application for this. Am I wrong about that? Like a couple different cities?
I have no, are you talking about when you say other locations, other municipalities?
Correct, yes.
That may or may not be the case. That's not relevant. Every township and borough has its own zoning ordinance and land development ordinance and its own criteria. So that would be apples and oranges. The only thing that we're allowed to judge an application against is our own Bridgeville ordinance criteria.
Okay. Also about the parking that we're able to, where is all the parking going to come from with this building?
Just for your information, on the site plan that has been testified meets our specifications. The parking that they are required to provide is sufficient for their place where they would have a customer or patron come and visit them in a public space. This location has approximately 700 square feet of that, and that yields a minimum of 3 parking spaces required. My understanding is the site plan shows that they have those spaces outside, and in addition to that, they have one internal space that they anticipate using for their own use. Is that a fair summary of the parking, Kevin?
Yes. Yes, it is, Tom.
And does that address your question, ma'am?
For that, yes. Also, with living here and having small children and living above this and having the winds come this direction from there, with everything that has any of this been tested by the EPA?
I can respond to that if the applicant's representative wishes to add anything to that. It may well be through EPA laws, through state laws and regulation that distill their way down to the county, but the county is primarily the local regulatory agency that approves such matters, and it has been placed into the record that they have obtained all their necessary state and county approvals, including their certification that is based on the compliance with air emissions.
Okay, and how safe is this then?
It's compliant with the regulations and presumptively meets that criteria. The applicant may, if she wishes, speak to, if she wishes, the nature of this crematorium and how it operates, if she wishes.
Attorney McDermott, my client, Ms. Padlock, is willing to offer a few comments to answer that inquiry. But prior to her doing that, again, I just want to reiterate that it's our position that the conditional land use was granted on February 14, 2019. So therefore, to the extent that any objector wanted to appeal that decision, it should have been done to the Court of Common Pleas by March 16, 2019. But with
We will
that said,
accept that as a continuing objection.
yes.
Right,
thank you
because
very
we had
much. I
no,
appreciate that.
we did not know about this. We
That's
really
why
didn't know about that as homeowners, that this was going in. And I also find it odd that we're having this meeting held during a pandemic where we're not all able to be there in person.
Your objection in that regard is noted.
But Ms. Padula.
So, the crematorium itself. I can't hear you. The crematory itself, the furnace itself, has absolutely no smoke or any type of emissions. The only thing that comes out of there is hot air. The permit that I had to obtain from Allegheny County took a year to get, and it's very strict as far as EPA and guidelines and pollutants and things like that. There are none, or they're very minimal, not any worse than a furnace in a house, because obviously we don't want to hurt the public. And I also want to say there's a crematorium up, a mile up the street, and there are apartments right next to that crematory as well that have never complained, as far as I know, to the borough about any problems with that crematory either.
Ma'am, the crematorium you're referring to up the street, you're referring to within the business district of the borough of Bridgeville itself?
That's correct. Chartier's Cremation.
Can we have the manager and zoning officer speak to whether or not we have ever received any complaints regarding that existing facility?
I have never experienced or received any complaint regarding that facility since it's been in existence, which is quite a few years now.
Thank you. Does Kelly or anybody else have any other comments at this time? I beg
Pat
your pardon.
de Blasio has been trying to get in. Is he unmuted at this point?
Is
Pat,
I'm here. Hello.
floor is yours.
So yes, I am here, and yes, I did have a couple of comments. First, as was being said, I don't see this being an issue of pollution or of air quality. I certainly see the issue of parking. Again, I don't see the issue of parking so much from the applicant's standpoint. I understand how he is trying to, or she is trying to, comply with the borough's regulations. I'm speaking more broadly, and Mr. Henderson and the rest of council is aware of the difficulties at the north end of Washington Avenue in Bridgeville Borough. The lack of parking there has constrained development and made a very difficult situation for the residents of St. Clair Street, the residents of Presley, the owners of the property on Washington Avenue, including the current applicant. And my comment is that the borough of Bridgeville, as a borough, should solve the public problem. It needs to be solved. And by the way, hold on a second, I take my share of the blame in not getting the problem solved. So I'm not trying to pass this, I'm simply bringing it up that we have a parking problem and it needs to be solved. Go ahead.
Thank you. And I didn't mean to cut you off, Pat. I apologize. I just wanted to ask you and have you acknowledge or agree or disagree with the concept that general policy parking concern is separate and apart from this application. Is it or is it not? You're not suggesting, are you, that this particular application can be denied or decided upon one way or the other based on that generalized parking concern in the neighborhood?
No, I find and I back in 2019 when this application was originally brought forth, I saw how the mathematics were being done. I see Mr. Retteni's issue with the possible additional burdens if the use were to change, and I see your answer. In quick answer, no, I do not see it as one way or another for this applicant. I bring my comments to the floor because it's a problem that needs solved by the borough.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page as far as what you're expressing.
We are. It is not.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we have any other comments from citizens? With no further comments, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Joe Colosimo.
Joe Colosimo, motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Is it Joe Verducci? I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion to adjourn. Are we staying on this meeting right here? Sure, or are we logging off and dialing back in?
We are behind schedule, so we can just stay on the meeting now and start the new meeting. Let me just get the agenda up for you folks. Can everyone see the agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do a roll call for the main meeting here, Cheryl.
Bill Henderson,
Here.
Nina Petrocelli. Nina must be muted. Here, we'll
Here.
unmute Nito. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Nino. Bruce Gallarducci,
Here.
Joe Colosimo,
Here.
Joe Verducci,
Here.
Nick Shashelsky,
Here.
Betty Copeland. Go ahead, Betty.
Here.
South Virginia too.
Tom McDermott. Oh, I
Here.
did forget Virginia. I'm sorry. Virginia Schneider,
Here.
Kevin Brett,
Here.
Lori Collins,
Here.
Cheryl Glowrick here, Chad King,
I'm here.
Ray Costain, Ray Costain. I know he's here.
He appears to be muted on my screen there.
Hello, I'm here.
And Dan Miller. I'm not sure that Dan's here.
Okay, we'll move forward. Thank you all for attending our meeting virtually here. And as I said before the zoning hearing meeting, this is our first attempt at having a virtual meeting like this, and we appreciate your patience as we try to get through this. I am going to open the floor up to comments from visitors, but I want to do this in a manner, given the circumstances that we have, that we will place a time limit. I'm going to put a 3-minute time limit on comments from the floor. And if you are going to speak, I need you to state your name and address, and then I will open it to your comments. So without delay, do we have any comments from visitors?
They'll need to unmute.
Going once? Going twice? No comments from visitors. I'll proceed with the meeting business. I need a motion to approve the March 9th, 2020 regular meeting minutes as submitted.
So moved.
Please state who that was.
Bruce.
Nick Shashelski seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. I need a motion to approve the April 2020 bill list.
I'll move, Joe.
A second.
Nino's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I need a motion to approve the April 17th, April 24th, May 1st, and May 8th, 2020 payrolls.
So moved. Bruce.
Second,
Bruce, do I have a
Nick.
second? Nick has a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I need a motion to adopt resolution number 2020-03, authorizing an action plan in response to the recent outbreak of COVID-19 coronavirus.
So moved, BJ.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Nino, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I need a motion to adopt resolution number 2020-04, a resolution certifying the Bridgeville Borough will be applying to the DCNR for grant funds to be utilized for the Chartiers Park upgrade project. Total project cost $690,201.
Joe move. So move. I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I need a motion to approve the request of partial payment number 3, the backflow preventer contract phase 2 for Cirrus Enterprise in the amount of $10,020.60 for work completed to date. The estimate has been reviewed and approved by engineer Brett.
So moved. Bruce.
Second, Nick.
All in favor?
Mr.
Aye.
Chairman, I have to abstain because it was work done in front of my location. And I'm very happy. They did a good job, but I'd rather abstain from the motion.
Okay, noted that Councilman Petroselli has abstained from this vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I need a motion to approve the following real estate tax refund due to a change in the assessment as requested by the real estate tax collector. Copy of the official change order has been attached to the request. This is for year 2019 for lot block 255-P-179 in the amount of $440.80 to Susan and Dennis Bott at 115 Greenwood Place in Bridgeville, 15017.
I'll move.
Motion by
I'll
Joe.
second. Nick second.
Nick in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No,
Opposed?
not. If I should oppose, or I should abstain, that's my brother, so.
Okay, BJ noted that BJ Schneider is abstained from the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? The motion passes. The consideration of the Borough Council regarding the conditional use application of Tamara Pajlek, also known as Pittsburgh Pets at Home, for the property located at 131 Washington Avenue. Remarks, a public hearing was held on April 13th at 2020 at 6:30 p.m. to receive citizen comments. I will open this for a summary review by Solicitor McDermott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and President and members of council. I have circulated for consideration by council a proposed motion that I would recommend would be suitable if council is so inclined to grant approval of this application. As I indicated, according to the standards that were discussed in the hearing. If you are so inclined, it would be appropriate to include the following sorts of conditions. And I would recommend, and you have before you a draft document that I've circulated, and the motion would recommend approval of the application subject to the following. A, compliance with all applicable federal, state, and local laws regarding the operation of that business, including the county air quality emissions certifications that were alluded to during the hearing. B, compliance with the approved site plan, and that's the site plan as previously approved by Borough Council on June 10th, 2019. C, with regard to parking, and also by way of information, noting that the approval in their occupancy permit is conditioned upon compliance with the parking as presented and approved. And as such, the lawful maximum occupancy for this conditional use is approved. Be subject to the owner at all times not having more patrons, visitors, invitees than may be accommodated by that number of parking spaces approved by this matter. Condition D also is kind of a note that no other use or occupancy other than this pet crematorium business is approved, and such that any separate occupancy on the property by a separate user business, for example, if it'd be a separate business by this present owner or by lease to another party, would be subject to separate application and approval, including adherence to all separate parking criteria. At the same time, making note that nothing herein is intended to limit the applicant owner from utilizing the existing spaces within the building, including the third floor space, as an administrator office storage space, so long as those uses are subordinate to and accessory to the principal use as a pet crematorium. E is compliance with exterior lighting plan. I would amend that on the fly and have that include lighting and landscaping plan as commented on during the hearing by the engineer and others. F, noting to the extent not previously approved, signage would be subject to separate application and approval for that permitting. And second, and G would be a catch-all that adherence to all of those foregoing conditions are a condition of this approval. And finally, G, advising the applicant that they have 30 days from this the date of this decision in which to voice any objections to those conditions, failing which they will consider to be accepted. And I would recommend if any council member is inclined to do so, to make a motion specifically subject to the conditions A through H as set forth in the proposed motion to approve application for conditional use dated April 13, 2020.
Do I have a motion?
Rick Colosimo, so moved.
Nick Shashelski, second.
Second by Nick. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. I need a motion to accept and pay any commission due the March 2020 real estate tax collector.
Joe Verducci will move.
Bruce, second.
Second.
Who seconded?
Bruce.
That's fine.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. I need a motion to accept the February 2020 treasurer's report.
Joe Verducci will move.
Nino, I second.
Nino second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I need a motion to accept the March 2020 police report.
So moved. Bruce.
Nick, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I need a motion to accept the April 2020 zoning report.
Joe Colosimo, so moved.
Nino, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Just under comment to the public, these have been provided to us electronically as well, so we've had the chance to review these reports prior to tonight's meeting. Committee reports, administration, BJ.
Bill, you have no other comments other than since the ALOM conference has been canceled, they are working to provide local and elected officials essential resources, education, and advocacy during the pandemic, as well as educational opportunities for the boroughs to continue their professional development as it becomes available. As you can see, we're doing the Zoom meetings in an attempt to, while we're under shelter-in-place order, in an attempt to keep things moving. The work continues on the revision of the personnel handbook, and the municipal building safety project that we had talked about is currently on hold. There are talks that are going to begin with the engineering firm when possible. And that's it.
Thank you, BJ. Finance, Joe Verducci.
We had a meeting on last week, I think it was Saturday or Friday. We had a discussion just to find out how things were going in regards to the finances with the borough, and everything seems to be fine. We had some discussions if what would we do if we needed to do other things, if there was a change, this was extended for a longer period of time. So we had some scenarios, had some discussions, and it was a real good discussion among the group that we had with Bruce and Lori and Nick. Other than that, everything's fine.
Thanks, Joe. Parks and Recreation, Joe Colosimo.
Thanks, Bill. Real quick, the bids for McLaughlin Park Phase 2 is supposed to be open on May 12th, hopefully. If they have to be pushed back due to the virus, talking to Lori and the engineer, the scope of work on the park shouldn't take that long. Other work to be done. So hopefully, if it doesn't get back somewhat, we'll still be able to get the work done this year. Permitting processes are going on down at Chartiers Park. We approved the going for the grant for the work down there, so hopefully that'll keep moving along. And a little note, we had a little issue up at Cook School Park. One of our residents chopped down a very large tree and it fell on the first base dugout. The damage was very minimal. Guys are up to check it out. There's a little 2 or 3 tears in the rubber membrane on top of the roof. The one gutter was a little bit dent, but it's still functional. So no major big.
Joe, I'm going to have to apologize. I can't hear you. You had said something about a tree and that was it.
Yeah, the tree came down on the dugout on first base side up at Cook School. Very little damage. The membrane on the roof had 2 or 3 tears in it, and the one gutter has a little dent in it. That's no big deal. The roof shouldn't be too big of a deal. What Lori told me, the resident called that weekend when it happened and said he would take care of any damages. Shouldn't be too big of a deal. So other than that, I'm good. That's all I have.
Is it our tree or the
It
residents?
was on his property, from what I understand.
Okay, well, I'm sure Lori and the engineer were looking on that, so I appreciate their attention. Thank you.
Public Works is up there like that Monday, and they got it out of there, and it's all chopped up, and we're good. That's all.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay.
Public Works, Nino Petrocelli.
But thank you, Mr. Chairman. Due to COVID-19, with Lori's recommendation as well as mine, we sort of have them a little off. They're working and they're not working. We call them anytime we need them, and they're cutting the grass, and that's what we do. When are we going to release them in a full time or altogether? we can tell you that. We try to keep them separate as much as we can. And Lori's and I, we stayed on that. The grass is cut. I see the parking lot over the building there. It's been working on it. And Lori, maybe I see that some of the public work, they're driving together. I would consider for them to drive together in a front seat. Obvious, they can't go in the back seat. No, that isn't any. But at least they wear mask and glove till all this is over. And
Right.
if they can stay as distance as much as possible, follow the law, Lori, we really appreciate it. You can have that note to them, please. I
No
appreciate it.
problem. I've
Thank you.
instructed them not to drive together along with their other instructions.
Yes,
And I've also instructed them to choose one vehicle and only drive that vehicle and sanitize it before they get in and after they leave it. So I will make sure that I reiterate that to them tomorrow.
Thank you. I appreciate the sanitation. I knew that, and I think it was a very good idea. I noticed they sanitize the equipment and the tool they touch, and this is just what we got to do. So you and I will stay on. You just let me know if you need any recommendation from me, Lori. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Sure, no problem.
I'm done, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
thanks, Nino.
You're
Public safety, Bruce Gallarducci.
Yes, I would like to make a recommendation for the position of emergency management. As we move forward, the Public Safety Committee has talked about this, and we come up with the name of Mike Tolmer for that position. There's an application process, which if we approve this, then the application can be filled out and then sent, and the governor has to approve that. So at this point, I'd like to make a motion to have Mike Tolmer take the position of Public Safety Coordinator.
Second?
Second.
Just a quick question. Should something like that, does that have to be advertised or no?
No, it does not.
Okay.
It does not. And I do have the form that needs to be filled out and submitted to the state, so I can take care of that.
Thank you, Lori.
So Bruce made a motion and Nick second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Anything else, Bruce?
That's all I have, Mr. President.
All right, thanks. Just before we get into the rest of the report, let me make a notation that we did have an executive session prior to the zoning hearing meeting at 6 p.m. tonight for a legal matter. Okay, with that, Mrs. Mayor Betty Copeland.
I'm extremely grateful for the restaurants that are still making it possible for people to enjoy meals by their curbside service. And also grateful to the fire department for the joy that they brought to the children in the community on Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Police Chief Chad King.
Thank you, Council President. You've been provided with the report. It's been pretty quiet, fortunately. Obviously, with the coronavirus issue going on, the academy is closed down, so that has impeded my ability to even start to put together a list of candidates to fill our full-time position. So I guess what I'm looking for is we still have the blessing in the future as soon as possible, once things open back up, that I can begin the testing process, advertise, test, and whatnot to get our service list completed.
Yeah, we filled that position on the Civil Service Commission, so we have a full board there. And, once you're ready to move forward, I'm sure that the Civil Service Commission and Public Safety will work with you to do so.
Okay.
that all, Chief?
Yes, that's all I have.
Solicitor Tom McDermott.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of council and the mayor. I have submitted my written report to you. I have nothing to add to that unless you have further questions, other than to note how proud, actually, I believe the borough and everybody from the president and the administrative committee and council as a whole, manager and assistant manager on Don, who have been working closely together, and we're probably ahead of the curve on many, and acting proactively and in an ongoing manner, in a fluid manner as the situation continues, for the sake of our community and each other during this process. And we've been providing guidance as we've gone along in that, and being ready, willing, and able to do so. But just wanted to let you folks know, having had experience in many different communities, how proactive and that you've all been on this.
Thank you, Tom, and appreciate your input and guidance through this as well.
Thank you.
Borough Engineer Kevin Brett.
Yes, good evening, everybody. We did submit in our report dated April 8th. And the only new item I have is there is 2 grants, the GEDTF, which you were very successful the last round. They're out early this year. And we have both applications ready. One's for the Warner Avenue retaining wall, $750,000 project, $374,000 grant. The other one would be for the PRP plan, and it's for water treatment units, and that's a $350,000 project, $137,000 grant. We can submit those applications without the resolutions, but it does require 2 resolutions to be followed up. They do have this out about 3 months earlier than before, so we do believe they're going to award early this year. And other than that, I think everything else has been reported on. I can address any questions.
Any questions for the engineer?
So do we need to make those in a form of a motion at this time?
If you could.
Do they need to be individual, Tom?
I so move.
No, you can do them collectively if you wish.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay.
Okay, so I have a motion from Nino to, I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Bruce.
Bruce will make a motion for them collectively for the grants that the engineers set forth before us.
Do I have a second?
I so move. I second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Fire Chief Ray Costain. Chief still here?
Yes.
Is he muted?
Ray?
I'm here.
Any comments, Ray?
Hello? There you
Yeah.
go.
There you go.
I do apologize. Call volume for the month of March is down a little bit. We had 26 calls, which we're grateful for the reduction. Just to let everyone know, our fire gear is still on back order. Nothing we can do about that. I do want to, on behalf of the Bridgeville Fire Department, would like to thank Devlin Robinson for his donation of N95 masks for our folks. Our PPE needs were met with that, and we have no additional needs in regards to PPE at this time. So that is all I have. I hope everyone continues to stay healthy.
Thanks, Chief. Southbridge EMS, is Dan here?
He is, yes.
I am here.
Any comments, Dan?
No, you got my report. It's actually been surprisingly slow with the COVID thing going on. We're wondering if the surge will kick up soon and we'll get busier. So that's a good thing that people aren't getting sick. The unfortunate thing is that's how we're generating revenue to pay the bills, and we're not running calls to generate revenue. So that's going to be a problem for us in the future. But for right now, we're ready. We have enough PPE for the responding crews, and we're gonna sit back and see what happens.
Is
Thanks,
anything
Dan.
with, excuse me, Ray, is anything with the, from the EMS, is any thing you could do with the stimulation as far as the ambulance service? I mean, it look like the government is helping a lot of this situation. Some like that, the firemen and the EMS, I believe that somebody should put a notice and push it a little bit for some kind of stimulation. I mean, it's like business. It's losing money just like any other business. Just suggestion, if there is any way somebody could do some with the federal government or whatever, just suggestion.
Yeah, well, we have applied for the programs that we're eligible for, but we're not really sure where those will end up, because we're fighting for some of that money with the whole nation. So we're not really sure, how we will fare with those applications.
Well, they should consider that very strongly. But if you're already doing it, so just let's hope that sooner they do something about it. Thank you.
Nino, I did see there are some legislators talking about funding for volunteer fire departments and EMS personnel. I don't know how many, what kind of legs that has at this point, but there is some consideration and talk about
good.
that out there.
Thank you.
Dan, I'd like to thank you as well for your reports that you've been keeping us up to speed on how you guys are addressing the COVID situation. And while I'm disappointed you guys aren't making money, I'm happy that it hasn't really been overwhelming you guys either. So.
Thank you.
Is Mary Weiss on, Bridgeville Historical Society?
No, she's not, but she gave me a brief report that I can give to you, Bill. This is BJ.
Sure, thanks, BJ.
She wanted to report that they were very successful at selling the Martha Washington shoe sign. That's the one found in the attic of the Darby Way building demo that was done recently. They made a substantial profit off of that. So she's pretty excited. Wants everyone to know that they canceled the bake sale in May and they will decide about June at a later date. But that's all she had. And I also have a report from Ray Ehrenholtz from the library.
Thank you.
He updates that the employees have been paid at the end of March, but Ben was applying for federal loans. He also updated about the Lower Chartiers watershed. That was the creek cleanup that was presented to the last meeting. Obviously, things have been postponed. However, Ray and his wife, Lori Ehrenholtz, they walked from Boyce Road to Chartiers Park and noticed there was very little debris. However, the most debris they saw was centered around the Chartiers Park area on the banks as opposed to in the water. Last report, the creek cleaning was after Ivan, it was 2004. But they still plan to do the water test, do the cleanup at a later date when possible.
Thank you, BJ.
You're welcome.
Let's see, where we at? Anyone here from the Parking Authority? Okay, how about the Planning Commission? Nothing from Planning Commission?
We do have a few folks on. I don't know if they have.
I'm here. I don't know if Dale was here, but we didn't have a meeting last month, and we'll probably, I don't know if we're going to try to do a Zoom meeting this month or not. That's all I had.
Thanks, Mike. Borough Manager, Lori Collins.
I provided my written report. If anyone has any questions or comments, I'll be glad to answer them. That's
Hey,
all.
Bill?
Yes.
Bill, Dale looked like he was going to say something.
Okay, go ahead, Dale.
Yeah, sorry, it took me a little while to figure out how to unmute the mic. A little technical error on this end. As far as the Planning Commission goes, we've been working on, we didn't have a meeting in March as Mike indicated. We're gonna I think we're going to try the Zoom thing for April. And we've been working on reviewing the comprehensive plan and trying to come up with a short list of doable projects. And a long list as far as, maybe something that's going to take, some 5 to 10 year planning type projects. So that's where things are at right now.
Thanks, Dale. I appreciate that. Appreciate what you guys are doing. We've had Lori's report. Anything under old business? Old business. Under new business, I have a couple of things. First of all, it's been a couple of weeks now. We had some water rise. We had a pretty good rain on a Saturday, and some very, very minor flooding down behind the beer distributor. Some water got into the one building, but did not get very high. The encouraging thing was that we were observing the water flow, and it was flowing very fast and clean. We didn't see too much debris coming through. The one drain seemed to get backed up with some leaves and debris where it would come out of if it breached over the hill, and the Public Works came out and cleared that away, and the water went down really quick. So that's an encouraging sign that we're, some of the things we're doing is having some impact on the way the water is getting through town. The second thing I wanted to mention is the Bridgeville Chamber of Commerce has been doing webinars with the different communities surrounding us. We had an opportunity to participate in one this past week where we've had, we're talking about what we're doing with COVID-19 or the COVID-19, how the administration is being run, the police department, whatnot. That has been recorded. Joe, it's up on the Chamber's site, I believe, right?
Yep, on their Facebook page as well.
It's on our Facebook page?
On theirs, the
On
Chamber's
theirs, okay.
Facebook, yeah.
Yeah, so if you had, I know there were a couple people I heard tried to get in and they were on standby and actually did not get in. So you may have an opportunity to watch that webinar on the Chamber's site. So they will be holding, I think, Carnegie and Heidelberg and Scott in the future. They did South Fayette and Scott, and it's a great opportunity.
Bill, Scott Township is Wednesday and Carnegie is Thursday.
Yeah, check the Chamber site if you're interested in seeing, what the other communities are doing. I'd encourage you to log in, and I think you have to register, right, Joe?
Correct.
Yeah, some people hadn't registered and weren't able to get in. So pre-register if you want to see it. Anything else under new business? I do see a chat. Let me see. Okay, Tom McDermott. I need Tom.
Yeah, sorry.
Looks like you want the floor, Tom.
Yeah, it doesn't require any new. I just wanted to make a clarification. I was concerned that I may have in the narrative of the motion indicated that they had a more spaces than they actually need. And it doesn't reflect the decision. They need 3 spaces and they have 3 spaces. I will correct the copy on that motion when it goes back out. It does not impact the decision, and it still stands that they have 3 and need to maintain 3 spaces. I didn't want there to be any confusion on the public record.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Anything else under new business? Well, before we adjourn, I just wanted to thank you all for your diligence in continuing to run the borough, working with your committees. Appreciate your first responders that are out there. Thank you for everything that you're doing to stay safe and keep us safe. And hopefully we get back to some sense of normal here soon. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Nino, do we have a second?
Joe Colosimo, second.
Joe Colosimo, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Night, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good
night.
night. Good night.